Welcome to the Grassroots Army podcast. This platform is for common sense people looking for up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information without the hot garbage corporate media bias. The power of one can lead to the power of many. You never know what small act that you may say or do that may literally change the lives of millions tomorrow. And don't you ever think that you can't make a difference, because you can. Good afternoon, my fellow Michiganders. Good afternoon, my fellow Americans. Welcome to the Grassroots Army podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Garrett Soldano, and I have with me here today a gentleman who is running for chair of the Michigan Republican Party, Mr. Joe Cella. Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Garrett. First time, and very much appreciate the opportunity.
No, absolutely. And we appreciate you throwing the hat in the ring, as we say, especially in a delegate race, which, as you're finding out, being on this side of the fence when you're running for something, my goodness gracious, there are a lot of passionate people.
Indeed.
That's for sure.
Indeed.
So what made you even think, and before we get into your platform, I just have to say this, because this is, last couple races concerning the delegates, especially with the chair and stuff, it's been very passionate. And there's been a lot of stuff thrown around, in the Telegram channels and everything else. And I just want to come out and say, hey, look, the three people that are remaining right now, you, Michonne, and Jim, they're all great people. All right. And I think the Republican Party is going to be in very, very good hands. By the end of the day, we are all Republicans. And we have to bring this message of unity, because you know as well as I do, sir, that 2026, holy cow, it can not only make and break Michigan, but it can make or break our country.
Indeed. We stand before a very pivotal election cycle in the state of Michigan. 2026 is the first time that the U.S. Senate seat and the governor's seat have been open simultaneously. And then, of course, the critical races below, AG, Secretary of State, state legislature, three competitive congressional seats, Supreme Court, and others down ticket. But I'm bullish. I'm very encouraged by a couple of things. First of all, we have a winning brand led by President Trump, the Republican brand. It's been burnished, certainly. Make America Great Again, bedrock, and the America First principles. And I will say that the Democrats are in disarray as well. They really can't seem to find their way. Even James Carville was bemoaning weeks after the election, we have to put down the NPR talking points. I don't think they put down those NPR talking points, Garrett. And you look at the two new leaders of the DNC, that's indicative of that. And just the other day, in very hot Cajun way that only James Carville can deliver, he described how he's given his blankety blank life to do this, and it's now going all away. So I'm bullish on that. I'm bullish on the accomplishments that President Trump is stacking up like cordwood every day, that I think poll very well for Republicans and very poorly for Democrats. I think you see the Democrats in the wake of President Trump's win do a few things. You see them attacking right, some of them. You see Mike Duggan become an independent. You see Mike Duggan announce that Detroit is not a sanctuary city, and I think he's opposed to sanctuary cities in toto. Now, Senator Gary Peters, just after the election, he announced that he used Republican talking points in a couple of ways. One, to express opposition to or outrage that the DHS and the FBI did not testify in Capitol Hill. He also expressed outrage, surprisingly, that Joe Biden pardoned Hunter. And the last thing he did, Garrett, was that he announced his co-sponsorship for the Lake and Riley Act. And then he voted for it, something he didn't do last year. So he's hearing footsteps. I think he looked at last year's election results and wanted to shore up his right flank, but he withdrew, as you know. And we have Pete Buttigieg, new Michigan resident, now potentially likely throwing his hat into the ring. And he's a failed leader. He failed as mayor of South Bend. He failed as transportation secretary. And I think he would bring a failed, woke, lunatic left-wing agenda to Michigan that we've been subjected to the last 6 years, and that's not good.
And you're exactly right. It's almost as if the Democratic Party has lived in their own illusion. They had control of corporate media. They had control of the majority of social media. And anyone that stood up against their kind of policy or any of their crazy radical left ideologies was censored, deplatformed. I went through it personally. A lot of other conservatives did. And so when they would read their own comments, it was all positive. So they almost created like an alternate reality of what they thought was true. And then comes Elon Musk, shakes it all up, allows free speech. And to watch the comments when Jocelyn Benson, Dana Nessel, Governor Whitmer, or anyone else, they just get held accountable. And they probably never dealt with this before, but it was interesting. You think like what you said after the election, after President won, on not only the electoral, but the popular, you think they would have probably took a step back and said, you know, we have to change, but they doubled down.
Double down, triple down. I mean, you see David Axelrod, you see John Meacham, another Obama alum, and these are kind of, and Van Jones. They're either saying, "Look, you know, we got to reconnect, we got to reorder," and it ain't happening. So again, I think they're going to be scrambling. They owe a lot of their offices to the left-wing lunatic woke donors in Silicon Valley and Hollywood, and it will be interesting to see if they budge off of the X that they're on. It's going to be fascinating politics to watch, and thus I remain bullish. You take nothing for granted. It's going to be a pitched fight. Even the Democratic Leadership Campaign Committee that engages in state legislative races has already listed Michigan as a target. So it's very imperative we have the Michigan Republican Party operating like a business on a movement, well-funded, and finding the candidates to back in the general that can beat the Democrats in these targeted races up and down the ticket.
100%. I mean, that's what we need as a CEO, an executive with the executive experience to do everything that you just said, to manage this thing, to build the organization, to fundraise, to activate. Michigan and America's greatest asset is we the people. And Mike Rogers had a very successful ground game, obviously with Trump Force 47, had a very successful ground game. And if we can tap into that and really engage and activate these people, you know this, they're the salt of the earth folks, they'll go to bat for you. So we're going to have to really get behind the right leadership to make that happen. So let's go into the platform of what you're kind of bringing to the table. But before this, you said you've been to many conventions, right?
I have.
But have you ever been on this side of the fence of one?
Not as a candidate. This is a first time out of the airplane moment. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were well aware, when you're running a campaign, you're usually building that airplane after you already took off, especially when concerning a delegate race. And, you know, in the defense of a lot of these folks, they have been kind of crapped upon by a lot of politicians in the past. And so that's one thing COVID has done, is really awakened a lot of people, me included. I never was involved in politics until after COVID, when our constitutional freedoms were stripped away, our sacred values and citizens' rights. So you have a lot of people that are very engaged, very passionate, and they just want their voices to be heard. And some would argue that, you know, Friday night is even more important than Saturday with what goes on. And the last time we were at convention was the last time around with me and Matt DePerno to watch everything that was going on Friday night. I mean, it's a pretty important night.
It is. Yep. Vice chairs. And this is just part of the process every 2 years. And here we are again. And, you know, we do live in charged times, as you say. And we've had charged times in our past. You know, we go back to Andrew Jackson times in the 19th century, in the 1960s, in the 20th century. And certainly now. I mean, you could talk cause and effect and why, but it's a bit of a fractious time. I think I'll just reflect that I think that the party, I've seen it in better days, you know, and it's really suffered mightily in recent years. Again, any number of reasons. And I think it's a great opportunity and very important to give voices to the voiceless that you were talking about. I mean, just traveling around the state, there's just this. The grassroots are thirsty. They want intentional leadership. They want directional leadership. They want to be empowered. I mean, it's kind of crazy to just hear these accounts of how, like, the consultants giveth and the consultants taketh away when it comes to, like, lists and so forth. There should be a continuity in those sort of things, and don't disempower them. They want to stay on point, and keep at the fight. I think we're all full of joy and relief after President Trump won, but I think we're steeled with resolve, and that resolve needs to be harnessed and put to good use. In Michigan, I call it the first in the nation primary possibly happening if Governor Whitmer calls the special election in the 35th State Senate District. Great opportunity. Dust off our battle armor and descend on that place like locusts. She has to call it. So, and that's just the first of the opportunities. I think that's almost like a spring training, Garrett, ahead of 2026. Build on the proof of concept things that we did have, but I think expand some things and try some new things, in fact, that can contribute to a win. I think we can flip that seat. It's a 52D seat, and President Trump won Midland Bay and Saginaw by 54.8. So I'm confident.
I would agree. I mean, especially with the messaging and stuff that we're bringing to the table with everybody with Doge. And I mean, we have an opportunity right now to really, really take over up and down the ticket, which is exciting. But I want to go back to Friday night because the last time around it got pretty passionate, and some of these congressional districts and their voting got pretty intense. I mean, can you just explain to the audience kind of what happens on Friday and how important it is? Because you're going to have to work with these folks. I mean, everyone that they're voting in. Can you just explain that kind of process?
Sure. I mean, the state delegates vote for the various vice chair positions, and these are people that would be at the table helping with the party in the various constituencies, and it can be spirited. I know that is before us, and we'll just see what the results are. And by nature, should I have the honor of having the votes to serve as chairman, and my co-chair running mate, Jessica Bearfield, also to have the votes, we would be bridge builders to the people. We're not bridge burners. It's by our nature. I've done it all of my life. I enjoy doing it, and I'm successful at doing it. And there really hasn't been that bridge building, intentional leadership in quite some time. And I would bring that to the table. And even amidst the fireworks, I mean, there will be some people that are intransigent, but my door will always be open, and I will be going to people. Part of our plan that we rolled out last night, we'll be having monthly county chair Zoom calls, monthly district chair calls, and we will be blazing a path around the state, connecting with the rank and file grassroots delegates and hearing them out, because I think the better of the leader is one who listens, and he might not always agree with certain things, but executive decisions sometimes need to be made. But that is just valuable, very precious forensic input that I think will can help leaders in various situations.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, the bridge building. I mean, because there's obviously been a lot of intense energy in the Michigan Republican Party over the last 2 years with everything that happened and how it went down with Christina Carromo and then Pete coming in. I think Pete did a really great job with, and I think he was one of the main reasons why we did so well in the state of Michigan. He brought that organization that was needed. And that's what we need here in the future, is not only to allow these people to have a voice, but also an organizational kind of knowledge, because that's what the Michigan GOP is an organization. It is a business, and you have to be able to build a business. I want to get into consultants, okay? Because that's the big thing, running for governor and dealing with consultants and everything else. Your consultants are your team, right? I mean, it's who you're going to surround with. That's who you're getting counsel for. I mean, who have you surrounded yourself? Because I think the biggest thing that people get concerned about is, are we going to get the old kind of guard, the old Michigan Republican Party? And that's where I think, even on my end, I get most concerned with, because the new Michigan Republican Party, the new Republican Party period, is everything that Trump is doing. I think the old guard is kind of fizzling out, and you're getting really good people who love this country, love this flag, to really stand up. So I think it's very important that, who are you surrounding yourself with? Do you have anyone on your team that could be affiliated with the old Republican Party, like the Never Trumpers, as they used to call them, or they still call them actually? Are you talking to those types of people? Do you have some of those on your team?
Yeah, well, it's a great and very important question. You're an athlete, sports.
Used to be.
in my life's work, I have worked with first string all-stars in the most critical battles. And that would be the same in this instance, should I have the honor of the majority of the votes, along with Jessica, to serve as chair and co-chair.
I love Jessica, by the way.
Yeah,
she is a great human being.
Very much just a blessing that she's graciously accepted my invitation to serve as my running mate. Just a great person through and through. And the other measure that I would have is that these first string all-stars would be seasoned, battle-hardened political combatants, Garrett, whether it is in the communications realm or in the fundraising realm, and just in the managerial realm. And I know who these people are. There are prospects out there. There's no short list. There's no long list. I know the profile, and there are a great number of people out there. I am my own man. It was interesting when I first became involved in the party in 1988 as a precinct delegate. There was a different way of doing business. This is before a lot of things, before the Citizens United case, when the constellation of organizations was born out, whether it's Michigan Freedom Fund or others that are out there. And they would do in-house mailing. They would do all of the mail in-house. And now, the culture has shifted. So there are vendors, there are consultants. No commitments are made. We would be a lean and mean operation with official staff. I would say judiciously, and obviously in consultation with the budget committee, we would retain the necessary vendors if necessary, and keep it like vendor light, vendor focused. Any consultants, very light footprint. I am my own man. I'm not beholden to any donor. I'm not beholden to any consultant. And I know past practices have been quite the opposite in my view. I don't know really the full depth and breadth of it, but I have a good idea of what's been afoot. And I think there's been a lack of lack of a governor on those sort of things, a lack of accountability and transparency and oversight. And that really has to happen. I mean, as we talked earlier, the importance of running the party like a business based on the movement driven by President Trump. You need best practices. It needs to be running like a well-oiled machine. And in the past it has, and it has to be, again, market-based pricing. What's the return on the investment? Competitive bidding, and then also what's the return of electing those candidates? And then I also think communicating to the donors, really the clients of the party would be the donors, the grassroots, the candidates, and really the citizens of Michigan about what's going on. I would issue an annual chairman's report if I have the honor of serving, so people would see where it came, where it went. And then I would say that after my first 30 days, if I have the honor of serving, we would issue a report on what was found after we lift up that hood and take a look at that engine and what's been going on. And then the second 30 days, we would do a SWOT analysis of the party, assess the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then go forth with the plan that I rolled out last night with Jessica online.
And it was a great plan. I mean, and that's what we obviously need here, is that kind of vision and foresight. Susie just asked a comment about the never Trumper thing that we were talking about. She asked, is there anyone on your team that would consider themselves a never Trumper?
No.
No.
Despite, I would tell you, Garrett, campaigns are often called silly season. That was really a term of recent years past, but now it's obviously fake news. And we have been going through a crucible of it. And it even began before I announced. It happened like, I think, in MERS, and it suggested that Governor Engler and Governor Snyder were behind my launch. I never met Governor Snyder then. I only met him like the third week of January at the opening day of the legislature in Lansing. And then I've seen Governor Engler in airports over the years, and certainly have conferred with other party leaders since I've announced, because it would be foolish not to get their advice and expertise of how things worked in the past and the to-dos and the to-don'ts and winning tactics and strategies. I have my own, obviously. I bring a lot to the table. But the answer is no. And there's been a lot of scurrilous charges, false charges of suggesting that I am one of those people. I had concerns early on in 2016. They were expressed. But I'm in the good company of Kellyanne Conway and J.D. Vance, who said far
They were
more
never Trumpers.
so fierce things as such. And I wouldn't say, and then those perceived sins were absolved by nobody other than President Trump himself, by Kellyanne Conway being named senior counselor and serving in the West Wing in the first term. And certainly Senator Vance, who probably had things sharper to say about President Trump, more than Kellyanne and me combined. And I would say his sins, perceived sins anyway, were absolved by him being named our great vice president. And
I think J.D. Vance had a really big role in allowing President Trump to win.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%. It was a
handled himself just unbelievably well with the media, with the debates. I mean,
masterclass,
sharp as a tack. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I would just say that I submit to you that President Trump absolved these perceived sins by some, that by having me serve in a leadership capacity in his 2016 campaign. I was in the war room with him on the election morning and election night, and was at that night, was asked to go into the West Wing. I couldn't. I had a newborn. But then I was immediately told, "Well, be ready because you're probably going to be offered an ambassadorship." And 6 months later, I got the call from the White House. So greatest job I ever had, and foursquare behind President Trump and his great work to make America great again.
In Fiji, right?
Fiji, and I was accredited to 4 other South Pacific nations where China is on the hunt: Kiribati, Nauru, Tuvalu, and Tonga.
Fantastic. Another question just came in. Who is Kristen Combs? Who is that?
She I met through former state representative Andrew Fink.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Who is a friend and former Supreme Court candidate, as you probably know. I think he is working as Speaker Matt Hall's his legal counsel. And so he connected me with her, and she's helping me in my endeavor in this great and important endeavor to serve as chairman of the Michigan Republican Party.
Didn't she support Nikki Haley though?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, okay. and she I might, as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm my own man. Whoever I may work with, they're first string all-stars, and I will tell you that their work is premium, and I'm grateful for it. And there has been, that is breaking news to me, and the fact that there's been no sign or indication that has zero bearing on the exceptional work that she did for former state representative Andrew Fink, and that's now happening.
No, I like Andrew. There's no doubt about it. Is she your consultant?
She is a vendor and doing a lot of legwork to help with our campaign, and it's very effective, highly impactful, and there are a lot of word games being played, unfortunately, in this race, and finger pointing and allegations. All candidates in the race, whether they'd like to acknowledge it or not, are backed and supported by vendors. If you want to call them consultants, they can be consultants. So I think there is really nothing that any of us should hide. It's all known. They're kind of playing, some of them are playing keep away with who their vendors or consultants are. They'll deny it all day long as to who those people are, but it's well known. I have text messages of one of my opponents in particular, who is helping run her campaign. So it's really this sort of conversation, Garrett, returns us to the following, and that is devoting 1 minute and 1 second less to our objective of getting Republicans elected and Democrats defeated, and sowing the seeds of chaos and division and drama and tumult, and that is not good. And
we have to remember too, we're all Republicans at the end of the day. We have to get away from this mentality that if you don't agree with 99% that I do, then I hate you, I attack you. I hate the word rhino. It's overused, right. It's horrible. Bottom line, if we can agree on 80% of the issues, we're allies. We're all better than Democrats and what they're trying to push there. And so, like I said from the beginning, the three folks that are still running, you're all great. You have my respect and appreciation. Throw your hat in the ring. I think our party is going to be in great hands, regardless of who wins. But everybody has their support and who they like. It will definitely be a interesting convention. That's for sure. But I want to also highlight one of the things that you and Pete Hoekstra worked on, and that was the Chinese battery plant, preventing that, right? The Goshen stuff. You had direct involvement into that, right?
I did, Garrett. 2022, really coming out of Fiji, I used my engagements countering China there with our NATO partners, and really wanted to put that to further use. And I began writing op-eds, doing interviews, giving talks on the China threat in the South Pacific. We have on our own shores a great threat. Admiral Mike Studeman gave a talk a couple of years ago in which he said the China threat is more gigantic than can be understood or appreciated. So a friend of mine from the Trump administration, he served in the National Security Council. He wrote a great article about how states need to do more to counter China. They can, and wrote a plan. I said, have you ever thought about launching an organization? He says, no, you're going to get shot at. I'm like, excellent, cool. We need to start this organization. It'd be good to get shot at to fight China. The Cold War, second Cold War, we're in it. And nobody had really done anything. Sat down, hour and a half later, wrote the plan, kind of a confederation, have like a mothership on the national level, but then a confederation of organizations around the state, the country. February rolls around of 23, the Detroit News article hits that exposes Governor Whitmer's corrupted deals that were operating under the umbrella of, or the shroud of silly secret code names like Zany Bread and Elephant and goofy stuff like that. And then they had signatories that had to operate under binding and punitive 5 and 10-year non-disclosure agreements that were party to these corrupted deals. Anyway, in the not so distant past prior to this, in fact, while these deals were cooking, so-called deals, our national security and intelligence agencies asked to huddle with bipartisan group of state and local elected officials and business owners to say, look, China is on the hunt. Be aware. These deals that they come to you or you try to strike are not benign. They have ulterior motives. Here's the threats, best practices, transparency, and strict scrutiny and due diligence. Garrett, none of that happened under Governor Whitmer, unconscionably. It was defied and recklessly so, jeopardizing our national security. Reached out to Pete Hoekstra, who I'd never really met or worked with, to say, listen, nobody's doing anything. Nobody in the congressional delegation, nobody in the state legislature. We have to do something. So he said, I'm kind of busy. I said, listen, I'll do the hard work. I'll be the director. You can be the principal advisor, because he brings, to the table. He fought China too well in the Netherlands, but also, the gravitas of an elder statesman and chair of the Intel Committee. And we launched, and we linked up with grassroots delegates and just activists, citizen patriot activists, whether it was to counter the cattle deal in Calhoun County or the deal in Mecosta County with Goshen. It worked magnificently, and the fight continues. I know they're both on the rocks. I think Goshen is in particular jeopardy. And it really turned out to be a model, first in the nation type of fight where this was exposed at this level, became a national story, international story, and recall of elected officials in multiple townships and defeat of others on the county level too.
I mean, it was huge. It was absolutely huge. Congratulations. Thank you for doing that. We unbelievably appreciate it. And that really lit a fire under a lot of people. Not only that, but it lit a fire of awareness of what the hell's going on. And we're kind of dealing with the same thing with the solar panel farms and everything else that they continue to force feed down our throats. And it just really activated a lot of local communities just to stand up and say, no, we don't want this, and that's the whole point of this. As long as we can be transparent. And just like you said, it's transparency that matters the most with these people. Are you going to be able to surround yourself with everyone that you think that everybody's going to agree with 100% of the time? No, your people are going to have their roles and everything else. But bottom line, at the end of the day, like we said, we're all Republicans and we all want the same gosh darn thing.
Right. And abide by the adage of President Reagan, my 80% ally is not my 20% enemy.
Amen. 100%. That's spoken like a true Hillsdale grad right there. Did you play any sports at Hillsdale?
I was an intramural athlete only. I was an athlete in high school running track, and then I swam my final 2 years, and I lettered in swimming my junior and senior years.
And where did you go to high school at?
I went to a all-boys Catholic school on the east side of Detroit, known as Notre Dame, in Harper Woods, Michigan. And that shuttered due to kind of a demographic shift. And they are now a co-ed school in Pontiac known as Notre Dame Prep.
Okay. I did not know that. Fantastic. And I see that you have a beautiful, large Catholic family.
Blessed to be married to my beloved wife, Kristen, for 20 years. And we have 7 children, 4 boys and 3 girls. Our eldest, Francesca, is at Hillsdale as a sophomore. And her next eldest sibling, John Paul, will be joining her in the fall.
Oh, that's
very special place.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, I grew up in Onstead, which is kind of close to Hillsdale.
Oh, that's the neighborhood, right?
Yep,
very
good.
good.
Right down the street in country ways, that's for sure. A lot of my friends go to Hudson and everything else. So that was our arch rival in high school. So I'm very familiar with the area. What do you do currently as a job? I mean, that's one of the things, and I have to give you props, Joe, because, I support Michonne Maddock for chair because she's been with us in the fight, with my history with the lockdowns and Unlock Michigan petition, everything else. Michonne's been there fighting alongside me, but she has my support. But like I said, anyone who's going to win this thing is going to get my 100% blood, sweat, and tears in this next election cycle. Yeah. And whichever one of you folks wins, I'm going to be behind you 100%. And I'm going to do everything that I can to get good Republicans elected this election cycle. But you came on knowing that, answered some very tough questions, but Jim Runstead, he didn't. He backed out of my interview. And to me, that is not transparent. And so one thing that I try to do to my folks who follow me is give them up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information. And transparency is very, very important to a lot of people.
Yes.
And for you to come on and just share yourself and your vision and everything else of what you've done, what you're going to do, is huge to me and to the followers of the Grassroots Army. So thank you, number one. But number two, what do you do for a job?
Well, thanks for your leadership. I mean, we need in this as we, I hope, are in the dying days of the dinosaur media, the legacy media, whatever you want to call it, the mainstream media that is certainly no longer mainstream. I don't think it ever was. Yeah. To have outlets like yours, outlets like Joe Rogan, others, Tudor Dixon, Tucker Carlson. These are thought leaders and opinion leaders that are in this scrum of ideas in our country, in a very pivotal point in our country. So you really give voice to the voiceless, and I appreciate your leadership and service in that regard, and certainly your leadership and service in putting yourself out there as a candidate. Not an easy task as business owner and a family man as you are. So that takes quite a toll. I have for the last 15 years operated a consulting business known as the Pontifex Group. The name Pontifex means in Latin bridge builder. Yep. So it speaks to my nature of being a bridge builder, not a bridge burner. And it also a little nod to my love of the Latin language. So my
do you go to Latin Mass?
No, I don't. I have, but I don't.
Ryan Kelly goes to Latin Mass.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yep.
I did not know
Another
that.
beautiful family, huge
Yeah,
Catholic family.
yeah, good man.
Yeah.
So I have the practice areas of media relations, earned media, crisis management, marketing, anything turnaround. And the clientele have been business owners, some corporate leaders, and nonprofits. I've worked from home probably about 80 or 90% of the time in those 10 years. And I've never done political consulting. I've done campaign work in the past. There has been, apparently, we as workers on campaigns are not responsible for filings with the FEC. So apparently there is a filing out there in a couple of the campaigns that I think they obligate to list people as consultants. So it's not a practice area that I've done. I've fought the good fight for Fred Thompson, the late Fred Thompson, in his race in 2008, Rick Santorum in his race in 2012, and then certainly President Trump in 2016, and then again in 2024. I was serving as U.S. ambassador in 2020, but voted for him 3 times and was a donor for him 3 times. So that's my work, and I fly and drive as I need to, but that's been my life's work for the last 10 years.
What called you to run? Like what was in your heart and said, you know what, I need to do this?
You're one of a rare few that describe it as a call, and I appreciate that, because throughout my life, there have been moments where I have been called, and these calls have been with great alacrity, whether it is the meeting of my wife and marrying her, to take a job, a little bit of a risk to go out of state to work for former Senator Fred Thompson, with a 20-month-old and a newborn in tow, to Nashville, Tennessee, and live in an apartment. These are clarion calls, just like I had that clarion call after reading the op-ed from my former colleague in the Trump administration, to exhorting people to in the States to do more to counter China. And this is no exception. I had a conversation with a reporter last year, and we were going to talk about the China stuff. And I sat down, and no sooner had sat down that he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about becoming the chairman of the Michigan Republican Party?" And it hadn't crossed my mind. And little did I know, I mean, there was probably a little bit of a foreshadowing of what awaited. And I said, really, I mean, there was obviously just challenges and chaos and tumult and drama. I said, just not, this is before I think Ambassador Hoekstra was, chosen to serve and lead in that capacity. That was difficult task and fractious moments. But after he became, was announced as a nominee to serve as President Trump's ambassador to Canada, I thought, well, I have the chops. I've managed any number of campaigns up and down the ticket, or served in senior leadership positions. I have a fundraising network inside the state and outside the state. And I put myself out there. I started having initial conversations with people that I have held as longtime confidants, and to confer on any number of things inside and outside of politics. And again, it was that call. I think that I bring to the table the things that are necessary as a bridge builder, a business sense, and a seasoned political combatant and communicator, to bring what is necessary to rebuild the pilings, rebuild the party on the pilings set by Pete Hoekstra, the footings that he poured. He had the success of a President Trump win, the success of Matt Hall securing the majority in the state house.
Matt's doing a great job.
Yeah, the great win of Tom Barrett in the 7th district. So now's the time to rebuild and make the Michigan Republican Party great again. And if I have the honor to serve, I'll do just that with my great co-chair running mate, Jessica Bearfield.
Awesome. Well said, sir. Well, I appreciate your time, and we'll talk next weekend at convention. I'll make sure to come up and shake your hand, because I don't think we've ever met.
Not in person. No. Followed your work, but never in person, and look forward to that occasion.
One Catholic to another, that's for sure.
And you have a vowel in the end of your name, so you're probably Italian.
Yeah, well, that's a long story. That's an adopted name.
Is it?
Yeah, like
Okay.
my dad's stepdad adopted him. I'm going to let out something that no one knows. My
Wow.
last name would have been Barbie if it wasn't for that adopted name. So thank goodness
Wow.
he took Soldano and not Barbie, because
You're
my
not a Barbie.
history.
You're not a Barbie guy,
I'm not a
Garrett
Barbie
Soldano.
guy,
You're not
and
a Barbie
I
guy.
can't imagine an inside
Thankfully.
linebacker from Western Michigan University making a tackle and they're saying Barbie on the tackle. It would have been bad. So I am mainly Scandinavian and British and German. That's my
Oh my
background.
gosh. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, that's very good. Well, great breaking news story there. That's
that's right. They'll
one for
probably
the
run with
ages.
that. Garrett's a rhino. His last name's Barbie.
Garrett Barbie, but
Yeah,
no.
that's right. It just
Anyway.
doesn't sound good.
Soldano flows beautifully.
Yeah, it does. Even with the flow, kind of looks a little Italianish, right?
You do have a
So,
Mediterranean look about you, I have to say. So
I'll make sure I come up and shake your hand. Say, hey, good luck, man. Way the weather the storm, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
likewise, sir. God bless. Thanks for your leadership.
God bless you. Have a
Talk to you
great
soon.
day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Great conversation. That's what I try to do to you guys, is bring you up to date, accurate, and truthful information. And like I said before, even though Jim said he withdrew his interview with me because of my support for Michon, I can appreciate it. But it was tough because I'm all about transparency, and just because you're running doesn't mean you don't go talk to someone else that doesn't have the same opinion as you or doesn't support. Like, I never refused an interview from CNN, NBC, ABC. You go on those types of shows, and I would have been fair, just like I was fair to Joe. He answered some tough questions. There's concerns on every campaign, that's for sure. And I just kind of wanted to address some of the questions that came up into the question section, the people out there who wanted. I didn't get to all of them. I apologize, but we only had a little bit of time. So I wish all the candidates luck next weekend. I will be at convention watching it go down to see who our next leader is. But to me personally, I'm not a delegate. I told my delegates out there, I hope you watch all the interviews and just follow your heart. Do not go on Telegram, listen to anyone else. Do your own due diligence. Who cares who's endorsing who? Who cares who's supporting who, right? Do your own due diligence, follow your heart, and guess what? That would be the best vote for you. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't be attacked for that vote. You shouldn't be attacked for who you support. Not as Republicans. We're going to get away from that hot garbage. I think Joe did a great job with transparency, and we're going to see. But to my delegates out there, I'll see you all next weekend. We're looking forward to who you guys all vote in as our new leader. And just like I said to Joe, and what I'm going to tell all of you right now, whoever wins, they're going to have my support. I'm going to do everything I can to help Republicans, good Republicans, win up and down the ticket. That's what I'm going to do for the next 2 years, to fulfill my original vow to all of you, that I would not quit until we restored the checks and balances of our beloved state. And that is winning up and down the ticket. God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan. Of course, and always, God bless these United States. Until next time.